So Next.js 13 shipped with a new way of doing things, and this new way is being referred to as the app directory. So you're used to having a pages directory, and in there you have like an app file and a document file. That's not how things work in the app directory. And there's a new way to do the server-side rendering, the static props. There's a new way to declare API routes. Everything is server components by default and so on. So it's a lot going on, but I think we can break it down. We take it feature by feature, and in the end, I think you feel like you can handle it and probably get excited to see these things that are about to ship. So let's create our next app. So we will do the canary version. We'll call it after. We will use TypeScript, ESLint, sure. We can do source, and of course we want the app directory. Alright, so we are up and running. We're looking at source app page.ts. You will see a lot of files named page. So if we go into the code, we can see that we're inside app and we have a page file. So the default way to get a route is to just create a directory. The directory will be the path of the URL, and then you place a page.ts or JS file inside that directory. And that's how you have a route, a file-based route. Next, let's take a look inside the layout. So here we can see we have the HTML and the body. So you're used to finding this in the document file. In the app directory, you're required to have a layout in the root app directory. So this is the root layout, and this is where you can have the HTML, the head, the body, and so on. And then we render children. We also get an API route in the boilerplate here. So we have an API folder. Inside that we have a hello folder, and inside hello we have a file called route.ts, and the route name of a file is reserved for API endpoints. So endpoints that return data. So this in particular returns hello Next.js. So if we browse to API/hello, we get that string back. So that's how you create an API route. And you don't have to call this folder API. The only important part is that you call this file route. And it's also important that you don't mix page and route files in the same directory. They should live in separate directories. That's what the documentation says. So we will just clean up this welcome to Next.js boilerplate HTML. We can keep the main, and we'll call this root page. It says root page here. And just to get some clarity on what's going on, we'll go to the root layout, and we will not only render out the children, we'll also place a div and say root layout. So we can see we have the root layout, and then we have the root page. Now let's create a nested route. So for that we just have to create a directory. We'll call it to-dos, and then we want to have a dynamic part of this route. So inside to-dos we create another directory, and this one we use brackets and a parameter, and inside of that we'll create our page.tsx. Alright, so we do have a param that we called id. We console log params.id, and then we go to the page, to-dos/1. We can see that we console log a 1 here. And if I open the console here, we see that every page is per default a server component that's being run. So we won't see the console log on the client side, but we see it in the terminal. So what I want to do next is to, since this is an async component here, we can do some data fetching. And I would like to convert this hello route to a route where we can fetch our to-dos. So I will rename this hello to to-dos, and let's create some fake data. Alright, so I created some fake to-do data here, and I implemented the get route so that we declare or we pass what to-do ID we're interested in, and if we don't find it, we throw an error. And this would not be a good idea in production code, but for this it's fine. And then we just return it. So now let's create a function that can actually get these to-dos. Alright, so now we have a function that takes in an ID, performs the fetch, converts it to JSON, and then returns the data. So our to-do is just get to-do with ID, and we need to await the response. params.id console log to-do. Let's see if anything works. Alright, so we got our to-do logged out here. And again, it's on the server side. Let's display our to-do. There we go. So now the second one should also work. And the third one should not work. Because we only have two, so we're throwing an error on our API endpoint. Let's create a layout file for the to-do page. So I will copy the layout file, create a new file called layout.tsx, and then we need to change a few things. We could just do a div like that, and this is the to-do layout, and let's see if anything worked. Alright, so we can see that we have a route layout, then we have a to-do layout. And this is of course only on the to-do page, so it will not affect the route page. But we are also fetching data, so how about the loading state? We can just add a file called loading.tsx, and in that file we can just say loading to do. So if we refresh now, it might be going too fast for us. So let's make sure that this server-side rendering takes a while here. So I'll implement a wait function, and then before we return the data, we wait 3 seconds and reload. So now we see loading to do, and after 3 seconds we get our data. So it's easy as that. If we have a long running fetch, then we can just add a loading file, and that will act as the suspense fallback. We can also have a not found page. So we'll add a file called not-found. So we'll just say this to-do cannot be found. And right now the not found page is not fully implemented, but there is a function you can call. So we can say that if ID is equal to 3, we call not found. So I'll try 3. It says, uh-oh, this to-do cannot be found. But bear in mind that this calling this not found solution, that is more of a temporary solution. They are not yet done with implementing the not found page. So we'll see how that works in the future, but we can still try it out this way. Comment that out for now. But what if there's an error? We should also create an error page. And to get an error, we can add a buggy button. We'll add a buggy button like this. So whenever we click it, we throw an error. And let's add that to our page. There we go. And we'll go back to it to do that exists. And we have to wait 3 seconds. And let's try triggering this error. So it says error buggy button caused bug. So how does that work? If we look at the buggy button, the error that we throw says that message, buggy button caused bug. But that's not what we're seeing. What we're seeing is inside here. We get the actual error as input to this component. So that's what we're actually seeing inside the DOM. And we're also seeing this try again button that just does a reset. So if we open up the console, we should see the error also in here. Yeah, buggy button caused bug. So if we try again, we reset. We trigger the error. We also see this big error in the bottom, and that's just because we're in development. That would not happen in production. Alright, so we just have a few more things to look at before we're done with this brief intro to the app directory. So one thing is the environment that this page should render in. So what if we wanted to render at the edge? That's very simple. We just export a constant called runtime and we say experimental edge. But what if we want to generate this page ahead of time? That we can do by exporting a function called generate static params. Export async function generate. And what we return from this function should be the params that we want to pre-render for. So we return an array and we do id1. And we can also do id2. So let's make sure that this works. So if I stop the build and I do npm run build. Alright, so here we can see our pre-rendered pages for to-dos 1 and 2. One last thing I want to mention is that you can co-locate components and also CSS module files down in your nested route directories. So if I had some to-dos specific components, I could place them inside this components folder here. That's no issue for Next.js. And also some to-do specific CSS could be a module inside of this directory as well. Alright, so I think I will stop there for this app directory introduction. So we've looked at a few things. We've looked at setting up an error boundary, having nested layouts. We looked at the route, looked at the loading state, a not found page. We've looked at some dynamic params to a page and how to pre-render some pages with dynamic params, making them static params, of course. So I hope you learned a thing or two. Please like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel, share it with a friend, and so on. And I hope to see you in another video. Take care.